The Gaza Strip, a small, densely populated territory on the eastern Mediterranean coast, is a place of stark contrasts and deep history. Once a place of vibrant life, bustling markets and rich culture, it now lies in ruins, scarred by years of relentless conflict and destruction. Buildings that once stood tall are now reduced to rubble. Streets that were once filled with life are now impassable, choked with debris. The scars of war run deep, etched into the very fabric of the city, a constant reminder of the human cost of this intractable conflict. But even amidst the devastation, life goes on. People adapt, finding ways to survive and maintain a semblance of normalcy. Children, resilient and full of hope, play amongst the debris, their laughter echoing through the ruins. Their laughter is a testament to the indomitable spirit of the human heart, a beacon of hope in the darkest of times. They dream of a better future, a future free from violence and fear, where they can grow and thrive in peace. Their parents, however, carry the weight of uncertainty, their faces etched with worry and fear for what tomorrow might bring. They live with the constant fear of renewed violence, of rockets raining down from the sky, disrupting their fragile existence. They long for a just and lasting peace, a peace that seems perpetually out of reach yet remains their enduring hope. The fate of Gaza is inextricably linked to the wider Israeli-Palestinian conflict, a conflict that has claimed countless lives and defied all attempts at a resolution. It is a conflict marked by mistrust, violence, and a seemingly endless cycle of retaliation, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. On October 7, 2023, the world watched in horror as Hamas launched a surprise attack on Israel. The assault, codenamed Operation Al-Aqsa Flood, marked a dramatic escalation in the conflict. Hamas militants, breaching Israel's border fence, surged into Israeli towns and kibbutzim, taking hundreds of civilians hostage. The images were shocking. Gunmen roamed the streets, firing indiscriminately. Families cowered in fear, their lives turned upside down in an instant. The attack sent shockwaves across Israel and around the world, shattering any illusion of peace. Israel, caught off guard, responded with overwhelming force. Airstrikes pounded Gaza, targeting Hamas positions and infrastructure. The Israeli Defense Forces launched a ground offensive into the densely populated strip, determined to crush Hamas and rescue the hostages. The fighting was fierce, leaving a trail of death and destruction in its wake. Hospitals in Gaza, overwhelmed with casualties, struggled to cope. The international community, condemning the violence, called for an immediate ceasefire. Months have passed since the October offensive, but the conflict grinds on, showing no signs of resolution. The harsh desert landscape bears witness to the ongoing struggle. A fragile ceasefire, brokered by international mediators, has brought a lull in the fighting, but a lasting peace remains elusive. The temporary calm is a mere pause in the relentless cycle of violence. Negotiations between Israel and Hamas, aimed at securing the release of the hostages, have repeatedly stalled. Each round of talks ends in frustration with no tangible progress. The two sides remain locked in a bitter standoff, each blaming the other for the impasse. The atmosphere is charged with tension, and mutual distrust is palpable. Israel demands the unconditional release of all hostages as a precondition for any further talks. Their stance is firm, leaving little room for compromise. Hamas, in turn, insists on a prisoner exchange, seeking the release of Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails. Their demands are equally unwavering. International mediators led by Egypt and Qatar have shuttled between the two sides, trying to bridge the divide. Their efforts, though persistent, have yet to yield a breakthrough. But mistrust runs deep, and progress has been agonizingly slow. Each step forward is met with setbacks, and the path to peace seems increasingly uncertain. The families of the hostages caught in the middle endure the agonizing wait for news, their hopes dwindling with each passing day. Their vigil is a poignant reminder of the human cost of this conflict. The Times of Israel, citing American and Israeli officials, reports that the odds of a hostage deal before Trump's inauguration in January are slim. The political landscape adds another layer of complexity to the negotiations. The report paints a bleak picture of the current state of negotiations, suggesting that neither side is willing to make the concessions necessary to break the deadlock. The future remains uncertain, and the stalemate continues. The current hostage crisis is not the first time Israel has faced such a challenge. Throughout its turbulent history, the nation has repeatedly found itself in situations where the lives of its citizens were at stake. Throughout its history, Israel has been forced to negotiate with terrorist groups for the release of its citizens. These negotiations have often been fraught with tension and uncertainty, as both sides grapple with the high stakes involved. These negotiations have often been controversial, raising difficult moral and ethical questions. The public discourse around these deals is always intense, reflecting the deep divisions within Israeli society. In 2011, Israel agreed to a prisoner exchange with Hamas for the release of Gilad Shalit, an Israeli soldier held captive in Gaza for 5 years. This deal was one of the most high-profile and contentious in recent history. The deal, which saw the release of over 1,000 Palestinian prisoners, sparked heated debate within Israel. Many Israelis took to the streets to voice their opinions, both in support of and against the exchange. Some argued that the price was too high, that it would only embolden Hamas and lead to more kidnappings in the future. They feared that such deals set a dangerous precedent. Others argued that Israel had a moral obligation to bring its soldiers home, no matter the cost. For them, the value of a single life was immeasurable and worth any sacrifice. The Shalit deal set a precedent, demonstrating Hamas's willingness to take hostages, and Israel's willingness to negotiate for their release. It showed the lengths to which both sides would go to achieve their goals. It also highlighted the complex calculus involved in such negotiations, where the lives of individuals are weighed against broader strategic considerations. The delicate balance of these decisions continues to shape Israel's approach to hostage crises today. Trump's return. The upcoming return of Donald Trump to the White House has injected a new element of uncertainty into the already volatile situation. Trump, who fancies himself a master negotiator, has vowed to take a hard line with Hamas. "All hell to pay," Trump declared at a recent rally, his voice booming through the loudspeaker. "If those hostages aren't home by January 20th, Hamas will face consequences they've never seen before." Trump's supporters, drawn to his tough talk and uncompromising stance, believe he is the one to bring the hostages home. They point to his record on hostage releases during his first term, where he secured the freedom of several Americans held captive abroad. His critics, however, view his pronouncements with skepticism. They see his rhetoric as counterproductive, likely to harden Hamas's resolve and further complicate negotiations. They fear that his impulsive nature and penchant for grandstanding could derail any progress and lead to further escalation. A heavy price. As the stalemate drags on, the human toll of the crisis continues to mount. The hostages, held incommunicado in unknown locations, endure unimaginable conditions. Families clinging to hope live with the constant agony of not knowing their loved one's fate. Reports have emerged of hostages dying in captivity, their bodies never returned. The families of those confirmed dead grieve their loss, denied the closure of a proper burial. The psychological scars of this ordeal will linger long after the hostages are freed, a testament to the cruelty of this conflict. The impact of the crisis extends far beyond the families directly affected. The ongoing violence has exacerbated tensions between Israelis and Palestinians, fueling hatred and mistrust. It has also strained Israel's relations with some of its Arab neighbors, jeopardizing fragile diplomatic ties. A pathway to peace. The path to resolving the hostage crisis and achieving a lasting peace will be long and arduous. It will require both sides to make difficult concessions and to prioritize dialogue over violence. Israel must recognize the humanity of the Palestinian people and their legitimate aspirations for freedom and self-determination. Hamas in turn must renounce violence and recognize Israel's right to exist. International mediators working in concert can play a crucial role in facilitating dialogue, building trust, and creating the conditions for a just and lasting peace. The United States, with its unique leverage over both sides, has a particular responsibility to lead these efforts. Hope endures. Despite the challenges, we must never give up hope for peace. The alternative, endless cycles of violence and suffering, is simply unacceptable. The human spirit, in its resilience and capacity for forgiveness, offers a beacon of hope. There are those on both sides of the conflict who yearn for a different future, a future where Israelis and Palestinians can live together in peace and security. They are the ones who will ultimately determine the fate of this land. The international community must stand with them, supporting their efforts to build a future free from violence and fear. We owe it to the victims of this conflict, and to future generations, to never give up on the pursuit of peace.